at some point watch you sell the assets at a profit.
People that use fiat currency as a store of value, we call them poor. We call them poor. People that use fiat currency, we call them poor. We call them poor. We call them poor. We call them poor. There's a name for them. We call them poor.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to a weekly candle stream. As the candle close approaches, I would jump on and give you all an update on what is happening in the market ahead of a very volatile week coming up, in my opinion. Thought we'd intro with a bit of Michael Saylor and a little dance remix that's going out all across Twitter, quite like that. Let's see if we can try and incorporate that into the streams. And yeah, let's take a look at the market. Volatile week last week. I think we're going to have a very volatile week this week. We've got loads of news headlines to kind of preview before the week kicks off. And some big stories, obviously, in the macro world and, of course, in the markets. Let's take a look at Bitcoin on the weekly. We can see we made that new all-time high. Rejected from $124,600 after CPI came out. Cooler than expected. We now have, let me see if I can sort the audio for you guys. Let's see. All right, that should be better. Turn the music down. The microphone is up. So, as I was saying, Bitcoin rejected from that $124,600 level after CPI came in cooler than expected. Just 48 hours later, PPI came out hotter than expected and the market retraced. This is all to do with rate cut expectations. So this is all to do with, will the Fed cut in September? Will we get 3 cuts this year? My answer has been yes to all three of those. I think we get a cut September, October and December. We might actually get a bigger cut than expected in September, October, and then no cut in December. But I think 75 basis point cuts this year is expected, and I'm pretty sure we'll get that now. I also think QT is going to end, so quantitative tightening. That's the Fed rolling off treasuries from its balance sheet. I think that will happen in the coming months, and I'll show you why shortly. Bitcoin still looking pretty healthy, to be fair. It's been a bit of a volatile few weeks as we've traded sideways. It was bullish for altcoins, then it was bearish for altcoins. We're kind of in that limbo mode. For me, this is just building towards the next leg up. We've saw it at periods before where we just trade sideways, it gets really boring, and then all of a sudden we get that explosive move. Typically what happens is it comes as we approach the end of the month, and that's because options expiry. So there's a lot of options. Basically, options are helping to suppress the volatility in the price right now. Big institutions use options as a way to almost make yield on their Bitcoin. So they buy spot Bitcoin and then they sell call options on certain prices. There's a lot of call options around that 124 to 125k range. And that's just suppressing price in the short term. But long term, I think as this week progresses, I think we will start breaking those levels. And I think the next leg higher. And it'll probably step like this again. This week we have some not so big macro headlines, but we've obviously got the backdrop of the Trump-Putin meeting on Friday. He's having a big meeting this week. I don't believe Trump does stuff that he thinks is a chance of losing face. So I'm pretty confident we're going to get a peace deal. That'll be bullish for global markets. It'll be bullish for M2 money supply, global liquidity, oil prices, all that stuff that's going to impact the markets long term. So I think that'll happen. And we have the Jackson Hole meeting at the end of the week, which we'll go into more detail shortly. For me, in the coming week, I think we'll probably get some more chop into midweek. Maybe Tuesday or Wednesday, we'll start going higher. Looks like Sailor's going to buy some more as well. If we look at Ethereum, huge weekly performance from Ethereum. If you look back to this low on 7th April, we are currently up 220%. Not bad for a $500 billion asset. We got up as high as 242%. We just fell short of that all-time high. I don't think that's a bad thing. If we look at the indicators on the RSI, you can see we had got well into overbought back in July. We then came down, and then a bit of a bearish divergence as price appreciated, but the momentum started to cool off. We've now went back from overbought conditions, had a bit of a cool off, and that just gives us that fuel for the next leg up. So I think, again, maybe see some chop into Tuesday or Wednesday, and then we could see some moves. Across the market, though, we are seeing a few leaders. You've got Cardano breaking out of this downtrend dating back to the 2nd of December, testing it as support. If this builds from here, then Cardano looks like it could target 117 and then up to that 132 level pretty soon. Binance Coin going for another all-time high daily candle close today at 852 currently, just stretching up to that all-time high level. I do think we test it a few times and then eventually we will break loose. Solana looking pretty strong. And then Chainlink, hopefully there's some Chainlink holders in, doing amazing today, up over 12%, breaking that $25 level. I think if we closed above 25, kind of 50, so about where we are right now, that would be a really bullish sign, and then I would expect us to take out the $30 level in the next few days. If we look at, in fact, let's look at Arbitrum, because Arbitrum's also been leading up 8% today. Nice check back in the pullback during the week. And yeah, looking pretty strong as well. Total market cap just below that all-time high. I think we get back there pretty soon. Total 2 testing that neckline of the head and shoulders as support during the week on Friday. And Total 3 just kind of simmering away with the others chart as well. Still lagging well behind. Bitcoin dominance breaking down. I do think we'll see a follow through of this week. We might get a little bounce back up to 60% and then a big drop. So that's kind of how the market's looking. Let's jump in the chat, see who is in, and then we'll round up some of the news stories. We'll talk about what's coming this week, because I think it's going to be a very hectic week. So Ewan says, do we think it's going to be good or bad news? Well, to be fair, that's one for CC Pro members, so we'll drop that in CC Pro itself. But it's one of the lead investors on Flame who I know through other projects, so I think it'll be a decent update. Patrick Burns says Dr. Profit thinks it'll be a red month with a pretty severe correction. To be honest, in fact, I think Dex already said that. Yeah, like these influencers on Twitter, like you just have to look through what they're saying. Every week it's Altseason's here, and then it's we're going back to 90k. That James win is just pure engagement farming. I'd be careful who you follow. Dr. Profit a few months ago was telling everybody that the biggest crash ever was coming. Bitcoin was going back into the $70,000 range, and it just never happened. For me, I do think we will get a correction September, October. I've said that for a while. I think either rate cuts, or even if we don't get the correction because of rate cuts, we're going to be needing a big correction around that time. September, October fits because I think Q4 into Q1 next year could be very bullish. So I do think we get that 30% drawdown, which everybody will misread and say that's the end, bull market over. And just as everybody starts flipping bearish, maybe in October, November time, that's when we reverse and go into the full-blown end of bull run, end of cycle, rally. That's kind of what I've said for a while. September could be a red month. It all depends on what happens between now and then. But yeah, I wouldn't listen too much to Dr. Profit. If we look at this, I've showed this a few times. This seems to be playing out pretty accurately. If this is accurate, then the next leg up, we will move up in the coming days. So you can see we had the retrace, it retraced. So this is playing out pretty well so far. The next move would be up if this was accurate, and then there's that massive correction that I think we maybe get September into October. Let's see what else is happening in the chat. Yeah, there you go. Nice pump from Borgie. Yeah, I think there's going to be more coming from Borgie in the coming weeks. Des is saying Rec Capital's good analysis. Crypto Buys thinks XRP's go back to 285. Any update on Vantage? And Loki thinks we've got 110k. So, pretty bearish to be fair, which is good. That's normally a good sign. That normally tells us that we are near the end of the correction phase. I think, like, in this market, nothing's off the table. So, 110k potentially. I'd be surprised if we break this 112k level before we get another move up. All the liquidity seems to be building above us. We wiped out, I think it was $400 billion worth of longs this week. So there's not a lot of leverage below us. For me, all the leverage sits above now. Let me see if I can get the latest chart actually, because it's normally on this page. Yeah, as you can see, so this is where the leverage sits. So you can see there's quite a bit of leverage longs down to maybe 116.5 on Bitcoin, but below that there's not a lot of leverage sitting there. I think a lot of the leverage is starting to pile up at much higher levels, and there's so much institutional buy-in that not sure if we get as low as 110k, and I think the more people call for 110k makes it less likely, which we've seen before. Let's have a quick roundup of what's coming up this week, because there's some big news events. So Michael Saylor says insufficient orange. That tells me we're going to get another Bitcoin buy from Strategy this week. He normally tweets on Sunday, and then we see big buys on a Monday. So chances are we will see Bitcoin price retrace. That typically happens when there is these big OTC deals needing filled. We've got Trump tweeting that there's big progress on Russia. So that is extremely bullish. Like I say, if Russia-Ukraine ends, that's going to be so good for global liquidity, global markets, oil prices, inflation. It's just a bullish event, and also it's just one less noise in the background all the time. Arkham produced this over the weekend, so hopefully a few of you have saw this. There is 3 whale addresses that have bought $280 million worth of Ethereum over the weekend. So huge buys coming into Ethereum, and absolute monster buys from institutions over the last couple of months, which is saw price now appreciate. That should be pretty bullish going into the next week. And then we have this. So the overnight repo facility at the Fed is almost drained. Printers must go brr soon. I can't roll my R's, as you can tell. So let's just talk about that, and then we'll dive back into the charts. So this is the reverse repo. This is basically where the Fed pays interest on cash balances from banks overnight. As you can see, we're now at the lowest level since April 2021. And this is basically used to provide liquidity to the system. This is why I think QT, quantitative tightening is going to end very soon. There is no excess cash reserves. That means that if there is large amount of demand for dollars, large amount of demand for liquidity, whether it be from a bank, a hedge fund, an institution, even another central bank like Japan or Britain who need dollars, there isn't that excess cash just sitting about like there has been for the past 4 years. As you can see, we topped out at 3 trillion or 2.5 trillion. We're now down at 33 billion. And this just keeps going lower and lower. So the Fed's going to have to do something to boost this. They'll probably do some emergency bond buying this week to try and boost the reverse repo. But there's not a lot of cash in the system, and this generally sparks a bit of a crisis at the Fed and in the economy. So this is what they're talking about. This is why QT needs to end pretty soon, and that is going to be very bullish for Bitcoin. If we have a look at gold, so gold finished the week. I think we could probably say this ascending triangle is now invalid, but we'll keep it on the screen anyway. Gold's been pretty much flat for, well, since April now. I do expect we will see a move in gold soon. I think we go higher, and the reason for that is, one, I think the Fed is seriously considering revaluing the gold. So for anyone that doesn't know, the US values its gold at $42 per ounce, when in fact it's at $3,335. So if they revalued it, it would give them about $800 billion to basically spend without the interest impact from yields. So the 10-year wouldn't come into play at all. I think that could coincide with rate cuts. When the Fed cuts rates, the 10-year yield's likely to go up because bondholders will be worried about inflation. So to counter that, they're going to have to do something. Revaluing gold could be that. If they give anyone an indication that that is going to happen, gold prices will skyrocket, and that would be bullish for the US government. If it goes up to $4,000 an ounce, I think that goes to like 1.2 trillion it would give them. So yeah, I would watch out for a gold move in the coming weeks. If that happens, then the revaluation is seriously on the table. Decentralized says, do I think this is playing out like the 2017 bull run? So one of the reasons I think that is because people keep talking about how Bitcoin's volatility has disappeared and how Bitcoin's not as volatile as before. I mean, it's still pretty volatile. I mean, this high January to April low was still 30% in a multi-trillion-dollar asset. That's still a pretty big move. But I do think that the volatility has smoothed since ETFs were approved. You've got the options market. The options market dulls the volatility because people can play both sides. So you can sell call options and buy spot Bitcoin and you win both ways. However, in 2017, the exact same thing happened. So I'm not going to show you this chart, but it's so small. But if you actually look, this kind of price action happened a lot in 2017. So you had massive rallies up, and then you had sideways periods. Massive rally up, sideways, chop, down, whatever you want to call it. And then eventually it exploded higher. And I think that's what's going to happen. Because this euphoric phase, this is when everybody piles in. You'll be getting texts off friends saying, how do I buy Bitcoin? Can you help me buy Bitcoin? That's in this period here. So let's draw it on. So in this period here, once the market starts to go parabolic, probably after this last chop, that's when euphoria sets in. That's when everybody goes mad. It's on news channels. You'll have friends, family talking about it. It'll be all over Instagram, all over social media. This is the period. I don't think we've got there yet. I actually think sentiment is probably just as negative as it's been for most of the year. You scroll on Twitter, we see a 2 or 3, even a 5% pullback in the price, and everybody's calling for much lower prices. Bitcoin, I've seen people say Bitcoin has topped. It's literally just a small pullback. Bitcoin's still at $117,000. We're still around all-time highs, and dominance is still falling. So everybody just needs to chill out a little bit, and I think it's just this drawn-out period is really taking its toll on sentiment, and people are kind of fed up, to be brutally honest. So yeah, I think 2017 is very similar. Low volatility until there is volatility, and eventually it just explodes much higher. Yeah, a lot of people calling for 110k. Like I say, it's not off the table. 110k is not a massive move for Bitcoin. For me, I think maybe it's bullish sentiment, but I think right now there's so much bearishness on Twitter that I don't think 110k would be max pain. I actually think a lot of people are positioned for downside. I think a lot of people have cut positions, trimmed out the market. I don't see a lot of this frothiness that normally comes before the correction. Plus the fact that we held this support line dating back to April the 7th, 112k, which was the previous high from May. There was a lot of confluence at that zone. So yeah, I'll be interested to see how this week plays out. Obviously Jerome Powell and the Fed are going to play a big role. I think we've got 85% chance of rate cuts in September, 51% of another cut in October. Yeah, that's before these Fed speakers on when's the 20th? Wednesday. We've got 3 Fed speakers plus the minutes from the previous meeting. So it'll be a volatile one and big macro one. Now let's have a look at dominance, because to be honest, dominance is what everybody cares about right now. Everybody's just waiting for this to keep crashing. I've said before 55% was the December low. Once we close a weekly candle below 55%, you will see alts going ballistic. In fact, you won't really need to look at dominance at that point, because you will see massive rallies across the alt market. But if you see, this is exactly what we did back in 2021. We failed to close below this 60% range for a couple of weeks, just like here. And then when we finally did close, it was pretty much straight down with a lot of follow through. That, I think, could play out. I do think we might get a bit of a wick to the upside this first part of this week, and then further downside to come. And that's when altcoins go ballistic. And if we look at total 2, we can show... Let's have a look. So that was March 29th, 2021. We go to total 2. March 29th, 2021 was just before this up only period where we pumped. In 6 weeks, we went up $832 billion market cap, 125%. So very bullish, and Bitcoin dominance does look like it could be about to drop further. 55% is the level that I'm watching for. Let's have a look at, see what else. Loki's saying, expect volatility soon. Yeah, I think we'll definitely see volatility. Yeah, but charts move regardless of what's going on. So in 2021 we had the grayscale, I don't even know what to call it, the trade. So the grayscale trade was what pumped Bitcoin so much in 2021. In 2017 there will be a different narrative. In 2029, 2028 there will be another narrative. Charts move regardless of the narrative. Of course, there's ETF buyers right now, market cap's higher. The ETFs have smoothed out the volatility, but that volatility still exists. I still expect a massive euphoric rally. I think if you look at what is happening in the States, the stablecoin legislation, you've got the 401k legislation now that can allocate to crypto, you've got loads of ETFs, the deadline's mid-October. The US government needs Bitcoin to absolute moon because it needs stablecoins to buy all the US treasuries. And the only way to do that is drive massive demand for stablecoins. The easiest way to do that is drive massive demand for crypto. So, in my opinion, this is all just a big game. And it's all to do with government debt. I think there's like $9 trillion to get rolled over by the end of the year. Who's buying that $9 trillion except forced buyers? So the only people that are going to buy that are going to be people that want a high yield, which the government can't give them, or stablecoin issuers. The only way stablecoin issuers get to that 500, 750 billion mark is if crypto goes absolutely ballistic and there's an insane demand for stablecoins. So yeah, the government needs to pump crypto, and that is pretty much it. Why are they taking so long, I assume, is the question. The reason they're taking so long is because they need everything lined up. So they need all their ducks in a row. They need quantitative easing, they need rate cuts, and also they want to delay it as much as possible because they want it to roll into 2026 so that the Congress elections, what's it called, the midterms, happen in 2026. So yeah, they need it to roll into then. But I do think it's going to happen very soon. I think they just need all their ducks in a row, like I say, policy, liquidity, and I think it's all gearing up for a massive rally very soon. Weekly close estimate below 119k and downside coming. Now, I wouldn't say so. I think we're still just trading in a range. We're not going to. I can't see how we're going to close above 119k because futures closed at 117,235. So if we manage to close higher than that, if we manage to open above 119k, we're just going to create another gap. So actually, I think it's pretty healthy if we closed around here. Like I say, we're just trading sideways. There's nothing to me that screams alarm bells. If we dropped to 112k, like you all say, 110k is the next natural stopping point. But until we start seeing some reason to drop, I just don't see it. We had some bad news last week, and the worst they could do was get us down to $117,000. I don't see what could really come out that would cause that, and they need narrative to justify price action. That's pretty much how they operate. Never say never. Crypto is crypto after all. So there is a good chance that we do go lower first. I just don't see it, and I base it on the fact that you are all expecting lower prices. The more people that tell me we're going lower, the less bearish I am. And the timeline on Twitter is terrible right now. You would honestly think we've just crashed 30% and we retraced 5% from an all-time high, and Ethereum is up 200% in the matter of weeks. Yeah, let's go through some altcoins. Let's see what's happening across the market. So we've kind of covered Cardano. We never really covered XRP. Just kind of trading sideways still in this range. Downside, if we broke below 299, then yeah, we probably visit the lows. Do we go that low? I don't know. It looks to me like a bit of a spring back test, consolidation, and then we go higher. But BNB, new daily candle close high potentially tonight. Still got 3.5 hours to go, mind. The BNB's normally a coin to pay attention to, because when you trade on Binance, if you hold BNB, you get discounts on fees. So I think the correlation's a lot weaker than it used to be. But the correlation used to be when BNB used to do well, it meant that there was a lot of interest coming back at the market. So watch that for an all-time high tonight. Let's have a look at Polkadot. Still struggling to reclaim that 200-day moving average. I do think the fact that we've put in this higher low here, we've not put in a higher high, but this would serve as another higher low. So you would be expecting us to start climbing and just kind of stair-stepping our way up. Ideally, close above the 200-day moving average sooner rather than later. But I think this consolidation period just goes hand in hand with the market. And if you look at total 3, we're pretty much doing the same thing. So total 3, Polkadot would fall in there. We've just kind of got this sideways stepping. There needs to be some kind of catalyst, some bullish news, something to justify getting out of this area, and others is doing the exact same thing. But still looking pretty strong. Higher lows, way undervalued, like we talk about all the time. This 536 area looks prime for an attack very soon, and then you've got the upside target of these wick highs at 1166, which goes back to May 2022. So nice easy chart to look at. Let's have a look at Gala. Pretty much similar, pretty identical to be fair. This double bottom, higher low, another higher low, no new higher high yet at the 200-day moving average. So yeah, just try to take out that neckline of the double bottom. That would be the priority, which sits at 0.023. And then once you're above that, it pretty much moves very quickly. You can see every time we've broke it, we've fired up pretty quickly. This was December, obviously, moving, what's that, 186% in 24 days. Back in 2024, we did 263% in 27 days. So once we break that, you can pretty much say within 4 weeks you would expect to be back up at these highs. So nice move for Gala. That would bring in some very nice targets. I'd probably put 0.06 as the first main area to look at. And then Borg had a really nice week last week. Back up again on today's chart. Just this, still in this consolidation phase. It does look a bit like Wyckoff, not entirely, but this. Let me see if I can show Wyckoff for anyone new to the channel. Let's see. So I've showed this loads of times on streams and in videos, but if you've never seen it, this is what Wyckoff looks like. So you can see, you could say that's the spring test, and this is maybe this period here. Potentially, it's not the cleanest, but you could say it's there. So once we break out of this consolidation period, we do go higher based on that. So yeah, bullish on Borg. I think Deck has some big news on Borg. I'll let him share it with you, mostly because I don't actually know yet. So yeah, hopefully we'll hear about that soon. I'm still trying to fill the tick bill for him. Stablecoins, another record high. Just every single day they're going to put in new record highs. To be honest, I wouldn't even be too bothered about looking at that. Dogecoin had a nice week last week. We are now above this orange line. We're basically just consolidating, letting the indicators reset, and that's bullish in a bull trend as well. If you look, we had quite a big spike in RSI. We've now came down and cooled off. If you look at it on the daily, you can see that nice cool off. And we could go much higher now. You look at it across the charts on the daily, we've just came down away from overbought conditions, and that is bullish for long term. Dawn paid deck. I don't even care. I'm selling all my Borg for Casper. I've decided. Not financial advice. LimeWire doing pretty well as well. I saw a lot of people talk about LimeWire. I actually saw a really good chart in CC Pro. One of our members was sharing on where they were buying and where they were selling. I'm not commenting on the buy levels or the sell levels, but if you're in CC Pro, check out the chat room. LGT shared it. If you don't have a plan like this, you are going to find it much more difficult to take profit and know when to dollar cost average. We've been speaking about this for years now, but marking out key levels on charts is essential in order to be successful. Just waking up, looking at your phone, smash buy and maybe selling one, like, it's just not going to be as successful a plan. You should have key levels, kind of like this polka dot chart, you know, key levels marked out, and you can say buy here, sell 10% here, sell 20% there. If you do that, you'll be way more successful than anyone that's just trying to buy when they've got a bit of free cash and they don't even look at the price, and sell when they get a bit panicked by a news story, because that's what's happening. All these news stories are just designed to shake you out your position. So if you're in CC Pro, check out that chart that was shared earlier today. I thought it was great. And you should have something similar for all your portfolio, mostly based on sell targets now and where you're going to take profit, because that's kind of where we are. We're kind of at the business end of the cycle. We're at the period where focus should start shifting towards selling. But like we shared last week in our video, there is still a lot of undervalued coins. So if you are looking to get into the market or get into different coins, there is a strategy we shared in a video that can help you do that. And if you're not on CC Pro, I think the link I dropped earlier, if it's not there, I will drop it now for you to join CC Pro. Monero is an interesting token because it's actually been delisted because basically it got delisted from quite a few places. I think there was an attempted hack on it last week as well. To be honest, I don't really look at this chart because it's not something I hold. Where's the July prices? So back down here. Well, I don't follow it too closely. I know there's a lot of interest in Monero, but there was a story about it getting hacked and it dropped to 233, and it looks like it's recovered. It's basically back at the 200-day moving average. So I don't know. It doesn't look terrible to me for something that's just been hacked and has so much going against it. It's basically the privacy coin. Like, governments hate it and try and ban it. They try and get it delisted. So yeah, I actually think it doesn't look terrible. I mean, if it came back down to 177 level, this is quite an obvious range, like somewhere in here. It wouldn't be a bad area to buy, but I don't think you'll get there. But one thing's for sure, governments are going to keep attacking it. And the more regulation that comes out of crypto, the less likely something like Monero will trade in many places. It'll probably become a token that's DEX only. So, yeah, that's a guarantee. One token I wanted to talk about was Alvara, having had quite a nice week. It sold off over the last few days. I think Alvara is going to do really well. Had a bit of a pop up to 27 cents. I would imagine this is people that have probably been locked up for a while, just getting out, because obviously we've traded down and sideways for so long. People get frustrated and they use any pump to sell. But for me, I think long term this could be really bullish. Mainnet's now in beta testing. I think they're going to ramp up some marketing as well, and I think this will do very well. And then we've got Xborg, which was back up at over 11 cents. Again, I get asked about this all the time, so I just thought I'd bring it up on stream. Xborg, for me, is heading much higher. They've got a big marketing campaign about to kick off in the next few weeks. We actually will have something exclusive about Xborg for CC Pro Alpha members. So if you're not an Alpha, might consider it. If you're not in CC Pro, definitely get into CC Pro. But yeah, I think there's big things coming for Xborg over the next few weeks. They're going to be listed on Hype as well, Hyperliquid. I don't know how much they paid for their ticker, but they will go live on Hyperliquid in the next month or so. I think that'll bring good volume as well. Yeah, to be fair, yeah, if you could have bought this dump this week, what day did it? Yeah. So it's just yesterday, to be fair, it took off. So yeah, if you bought Monero on Friday, it would have been a ridiculous buy. But even if you bought it today, we're interested to see. We'll leave this up, and we'll see how it gets on. I think it's going to be one of those coins that, as people see what the government's doing, like regardless of what you think of Trump, what you think of anybody, like they're all in it for one thing. It's completely manipulated. It's all about government debt. It's all about government control. They banned CBDCs and now they're regulating stablecoins. It's the exact same thing. So, yeah. Right, let's touch on TradFi just because it does tie in well, and I got asked this a couple of times last week, so we'll just cover it. So the Dow Jones is a bit of a... So the S&P 500 is the top 500 public companies. NASDAQ's the tech sector. The Dow Jones is the broad stock market, so it's made up of all big companies from a wide range of industries. It put in a new all-time high last week. So to all the bears saying that there's going to be a recession, that businesses are struggling, we're putting in all-time highs, and this is with tariffs and everything else happening. This is extremely bullish for crypto because this breadth is what we want to see in crypto. And the Russell 2000 is very highly correlated with altcoins. As you can see, Russell 2000 sold off on the news of PPI as well. But you can see we actually closed back above the local high from the 24th of July. So if tomorrow's candle is green, I think that's a very positive sign. And that's probably the retracement over back to this range that we've been measuring since the 1st of July. Russell 2000 is small cap stocks. So it does well in when there's a lot of liquidity about, same as altcoins. So that's why the correlation's so high. Right now, we all know the S&P 500, the Nasdaq, they're basically controlled by the Mag 7. Very similar to crypto. It's been dominated by Bitcoin over the last couple of years. That breadth is starting to open up. Mag 7, the dominance is going to drop. Bitcoin dominance is going to drop. And it all flows together. So that's why it's so important. That's why you'll see it across the timeline quite a lot. Don't believe the bears that say small caps are about to get destroyed. If anything, small caps are going to go into their own little bull run because of deregulation, lower rates, and mostly because the Mag 7 are going to have to rely on other businesses to build out the infrastructure for AI long term. It was a good week for Robinhood as well. Bouncing back on Friday, almost at all-time highs, and Coinbase back down, but I think this gap's going to get filled in the next couple of weeks, which will be very bullish. Yeah, the VIX is going to fall because volatility is lower because tariffs are now in place. The reason the VIX was high was because everybody was worried about tariffs, and then everybody realised that tariffs were a non-story, as we've been saying since March. So yeah, the VIX has dropped. It'll probably stay pretty low unless there's any event that happens. Do Bitcoin miners pump with alts? No, but there's some Bitcoin miners have been doing pretty well. I've got a couple on here. So Iron is at all-time highs, highest daily candle close in history on Friday. I did have other ones, but I don't have them on here. Yeah, Bitcoin miners is a strange one. It does well. The problem for Bitcoin miners is you're constantly pushing up against energy costs. So long term, I've just never thought they were a great investment. You do get Bitcoin exposure, but then it's like pushing water uphill. You're kind of always battling against energy price, especially because the hash rate's just put a new all-time high in. So yeah, it's not something I would consider, to be honest. I can look at Hut 8. I think, is it Hut 8 the one that's backed by Pomp? I'm sure it is. Yeah. So back, still above here, but down quite a lot. Oh, it's 2021. Yeah, kind of similar to what Deck's saying. To be honest, I'd even buy ETFs before I bought. I'd buy MicroStrategy, whatever they offer. They've got like 1 million products right now. I'd buy MicroStrategy or their offerings, whatever they are, Strike and Strife and all this nonsense. Then I'd buy an ETF before I buy mining stock, and I wouldn't buy any of them because I would just buy spot. But I suppose if you've got a pension and you can't hold spot Bitcoin, you might consider looking at those things. But for me, I would just ignore the miners. I would go straight to MicroStrategy or ETFs if I couldn't hold spot. The other thing with miners is long term, I don't see how governments don't absolutely destroy them, because it's the easiest way for a government to get exposure to Bitcoin is just go and mine it yourself. Like, governments around the world can't use taxpayer money. They can't raise taxes and then go and spend it on crypto. But what they can do is say, we're going to build a solar farm and 10% of it's going to be used to mine Bitcoin. Or when prices of energy drop below a certain price, we're going to use it to mine Bitcoin. Like, there's loads of strategies to do with mining in governments. That's how they're going to accumulate their Bitcoin, in my opinion, long term.
Somos chispa antigua, transformada en latido, en pensamiento, en fuego que respira.
So yeah, I wouldn't pay too much attention to them. They will do well, obviously, but again, energy costs are going to absolutely wipe them out. And AI is now a competitor as well, because AI businesses are trying to buy all that energy. So yeah, miners going to have a tough job of it long term. Let's look back at the weekly candles. So Bitcoin $117,682, just trading sideways before futures open in an hour. You've got Ethereum, highest weekly candle close since November 2021, so very bullish. XRP sideways, a little bit down, but basically just in a consolidation period. I think waiting on the next leg. Cardano, very strong week, up nicely, highest weekly candle close since February. And then BNB, highest weekly candle close ever, probably a highest weekly candle close ever, I should say, because we've got 3 hours to go. Also highest daily candle close, potentially, as long as we close above 850, which we're just above it right now. So a lot of bullish moves despite the pessimism, despite the negativity on Twitter, and a lot of people turning a bit bearish. Total market cap, highest weekly candle close in history. So there's a lot to be bullish about. This is going to be the highest total 2 weekly candle close since December the 2nd, which was the local high for the altcoins. And Bitcoin dominance with the lowest weekly candle close since January 2025. So a lot of bullish moves in the market, a lot coming up this week. Fed speakers, PMIs, and Jackson Hole. We've also got the Trump, Russia, Ukraine. Whatever's happening there happens. No doubt it will be used to move price. We'll probably get some bad news followed by some good news. By the end of the week, I'm pretty confident we will have a peace deal, because I don't believe Putin flew halfway around the world just to sit in Trump's car. And at the end of the day, I think Bitcoin will start its next leg higher in probably the next few days. I think Jackson Hole could be a key thing, especially with the new Fed chair, Stephen Moran, who's massively bullish on Bitcoin. We never got asked about Opulus. Can't believe we never got asked about Opulus now that it's up above 5 cents. Opulus doing pretty well. We could see come back to this 4 cents for tested support before we go higher. But it's been moving really nicely. Higher lows. Looks pretty strong, to be fair. And yeah, I think there's a long way to go in Opulus. What we do need is we need that total 3 and others chart to start breaking out before we get too excited about the smaller cap coins. So right now the entire market's controlled by Bitcoin, Ethereum, and you could say XRP and BNB. Even Solana's lagging way behind. That'll change in the next couple of weeks, and we will see Ethereum going into a bit of a cooling off period, and then we'll see total 3 and others start to fly. And that's pretty much, I'm guessing, what 99.9% of people watching the stream and NCC Pro want, because they are overexposed, or not overexposed, the majority of their portfolio is in smaller altcoins. I include myself in that category. So that's all for tonight. I will be back tomorrow night with the Alpha stream, and I'll catch everyone else later in the week. If you're in CC Pro, make sure you've checked out our latest video, and I will see you all very soon. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure to drop a like, and see you later.
Left sock missing, right brain spinning. Hello, gravity. You smell different today. Gibberish, or reverse phrase.